What's good, everybody, man? This is your guy, Manny, and this is the Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. So, obviously, I know how we do it, man. We're going to talk some sports. We're going to talk some NBA playoffs. We're going to talk some fantasy football. And we're just gonna go with the flow and see where this show takes us. So, without further ado, I'm going to run my intro. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing on and popping. Let's get it. So before I kick off this episode, I want to talk about a trade, fantasy football related. I was offered Jerry Jeudy for a 23 first. Now, granted, these 23 firsts are just so important, so vital. I'm not even sure even if I even do that deal. It's a great offer for the simple fact that I traded Jerry Jeudy for 3 seconds. Now I get to trade a first to get Jerry Jeudy back. So it's just a win-win scenario. I think the guy is trying to get back his first-round pick because he's most likely going to tank and have a high a percentage of getting number one overall. But me knowing that, and I'm trying to tank as well, I don't think I'm going to be able to give him this trade. I'm going to need a little bit more outside of Jerry Jeudy. He does have this court stuff. We don't know what's going to happen. Jerry Jeudy is a phenomenal talent, and trading a 23 first for Jerry Jeudy is more than worth it. But we'll see if I actually take this deal or not. Pretty good offer. But let's go ahead and switch gears to basketball for a minute. So we're going to experience a fun series in the Western Conference Finals. You have Luka Doncic versus Steph Curry. Steph Curry is phenomenal at what he does, which is score, shoot the ball. You're going to have an epic guard matchup. Now, obviously, Steph Curry is not going to be guarding Luka Doncic, and Luka Doncic is not going to be guarding Steph Curry. So with this matchup, it's a cross matchup, but at the same time, you're going to see some high-level play. Klay Thompson has been great. He's been excellent ever since he came back from injury, and that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing moving forward. I think that Klay Thompson has an opportunity to have a great series. Now, when you look at the Mavericks and how they're built off of Luka Doncic, who just pretty much drives, does whatever he wants, and he finds the open shooters. Dallas does have an abundance of shooters. You look at guys like Maxi Kleber. He comes out there. He knocks down threes, right? You have guys like Finney Smith. You have Jalen Brunson, who's been phenomenal. So you look at a guy like Jalen Brunson, and then you look at a guy like Jordan Poole from the Golden State Warriors. I think that those two players are going to those two players are going to cancel each other out. Whichever of those two players that does more for their team gives their particular team the edge in this series. I think it comes down to Jordan Poole and Jalen Brunson. You have Steph Curry, then you have Luka Doncic, right? Whatever those two guys do is most likely a wash. Now, we're getting into, let's say, the second-tier guy or like the second-best player. We all know that Luka and Steph are number one and number two. Number one for their particular teams. Number two, obviously, is Klay Thompson. But then on the other side, you got to say Jalen Brunson, right? Because, he's been the most consistent. Like, Dallas doesn't really have a number two guy. It's done by committee. They have tons of wing defenders and shooters. They have a lot of 3-and-D guys. So when you're looking at how Dallas is constructed, like, you don't know who's going to score every night. You don't know who's going to make shots every night. So it's going to be an intriguing matchup just for the simple fact that I think that Dallas can match up defensively with the Warriors, but it's going to come down to who makes the most shots to take this series. Oh, Time Out Sports, man. What's good, brother, man? Appreciate you hopping on this stream. But yeah, man, shout out to your Miami Heat. Your Miami Heat, they continue to prove me wrong. Like I said before, I have apologized for it. The Miami Heat are a great team, and it took me this long to figure out how great the Miami Heat really are. You have a matchup versus the Celtics, which I think both teams play similar. They don't really have a dominant big on the inside yet. Bam Adebayo is a great player, but he's not really a big that's going to be so dominant on the offensive end. Like when I say dominant, I'm talking about like a Joel Embiid or a Jokic. He's not that kind of guy. He's great defensively. He can score the ball, but he's not a ball hog. He does not need touches, right? So Great series, by the way. The way that you guys were able to take away what Jason Tatum does well. Like, I mean, you guys gave Jason Tatum fits. You have Jimmy Butler, who was so underrated. Jimmy Butler is such a great player, and I seen it versus my Lakers 2 years ago, and now I'm seeing it again. Spoelstra, this guy is a legend of a coach. Everybody was thinking, oh, it's because of LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Wade is the reason why Spoelstra was blah, blah. No, Spoelstra is showing that he's a really good coach. He continues to take talents, guys such as Gabe Vincent and Mike Strauss and guys like that, and maximize and get the best out of those guys. When you have guys that he overpaid, like Duncan Robinson, who's not really playing ball the way he's supposed to play ball, but at the same time, he just continued to find ways to get the maximum effort out of all of his players. Timeout Sports says, 7 away. I need it. It's been a decade since our last ring. Look, I have no problem with the Miami Heat. If you guys win it, great. I don't like the Celtics being a Laker, so obviously I'm going for the Miami Heat in this particular series. Now, I did pick the Golden State Warriors or the Memphis Grizzlies to win it all, but if they don't, it's all love. I'm okay with Miami winning it all. I'm okay with Golden State. I'm okay with even Dallas. You know, Dirk Nowitzki is my second favorite player of all time. So I've always loved Dirk Nowitzki. I loved Dallas when they had, guys like Steve Nash and people like, Michael Finley, Nick Van Exel. Those are my guys. So I'm okay with Dallas winning it. I'm okay with Miami. I'm okay with Golden State. Now, what's interesting is if Dallas meets up again with Miami, this is going to be a legendary matchup because Dallas and Miami usually have these great games. Remember Shaq and Wade, winning versus my guy Dirk. That hurt so bad. Was it? Oh, no. I think Dirk beat Shaq and Wade, and then Miami beat Dallas. I can't even remember. All I know is Miami won one, and then Dallas won one. I know it's 1-1 since I followed that particular matchup. So it could possibly happen again. And if it happens this time, Luka versus Miami, I think Miami might get the best out of Luka just for the fact Miami just has so many guys to throw at Luka that these shooters or players around him have to step up. Spencer Dinwiddie has to step up in this series versus Golden State, and I don't know what he does. What's good, man? My guy Hawk. Appreciate you hopping on the stream, man. Just talking a little bit of NBA basketball, talking a little bit of fantasy football before I get off here. But, yeah, it's going to be a great matchup. I think the key for Dallas, outside of Jalen Brunson, I've already called him the X Factor earlier on in the show, but I also like what Spencer Dinwiddie has been doing. I heard a rumor that he has a $1 bonus if he wins the NBA title. I don't know how true that is, but I think that's pretty funny. So we'll see what happens there. Timeout says it was Wade and Shaq that beat Dirk. Okay, Wade and Shaq beat Dirk in 2006. I remember that. And I was sad because I'm a big Dirk fan. After Kobe, for me, it's Dirk. So, yeah, I remember that. I just kind of got it mixed up. But, yeah, and then when it came back around, when LeBron went to Miami, I was a big LeBron fan before he went to Miami. So when he went to Miami for those 4 years, I cheered against LeBron. And that's what it was. I was going for Dallas once more. And then Dirk Nowitzki was able to beat that LeBron James-led team. I remember, I think it was like their first time going to the finals with their, we're not going to win not one, not two, not three. Yeah, I remember all that. And I hated LeBron with a passion. And now that he's a Laker, I'm cheering him on for my team. That's just sports. And if I ever meet LeBron in real life, I'll tell him, look, I loved you once. I hated you once. And, hey, I love you once again. If he leaves the Lakers and goes somewhere else, guess what? I'm not a LeBron. I can't support LeBron. So I'm always about supporting the guys that are on my particular team. Then I always respect all the great players. Jason Tatum. I'm a Laker. I hate the Celtics, but I love Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum is such a great talent. He's fun to watch. I love his game. And I'm hoping one day he ends up on the Lakers. How the Lakers do. They always go ahead and grab all these different guys that nobody else wants. Or sometimes they grab these players that want out, right? So that's just kind of how it goes. So Yeah, with the Miami and Celtics series, I'm not too excited about it because I don't really care, who wins. Honestly, I mean, obviously, I don't want the Celtics to win, but I'm not really zoned into that Miami series. Now, Miami getting to the finals, maybe I'll see a matchup or two that I want to watch, but I'm more interested. I'm more geared into this Warriors matchup versus the Dallas Mavericks. Also, when you look at the bench for the Golden State Warriors, they have now moved Jordan Poole back into that bench role, right? And he's adapting okay, but I think he really relishes those moments that he's starting. He feels engaged earlier on, and that's kind of what gets him going. So, like I said, Jordan Poole is the X factor for Golden State, while Jalen Brunson is the X factor for Dallas. So those are things that I'm looking at. Outside of the big names, what is Andrew Wiggins going to do? Andrew Wiggins is a guy that I feel like he doesn't really fit on this team. Ever since Klay Thompson came back, he doesn't really know where he fits in. He still plays great defense. I mean, he's taking over that defensive role, that mentality, because you've lost some of your defenders. Iguodala, we all know he's old, but he can still defend. And then, Gary Payton Jr. So you have guys that you're missing defensively. So Wiggins does play pretty good defense. But at the same time, like offensively, I don't know. I would much rather bring Wiggins off the bench. I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, when you look at Golden State, they really don't start a traditional power forward, right? They're literally going two wings with Klay and Wiggins, and they just kind of just move them around. And then you have a undersized small forward playing center in Draymond Green, and he plays that role very, very well. So you have a team, like I said, they are loaded defensively in Golden State. Even Steph Curry is improving his defense, and you saw that in that Memphis series. And, I mean, he was magnificent. He was great. So moving forward, you're looking at it like, okay, you have a bunch of guys who defend. Can they close out that three-point line? If they can, then you can pretty much do whatever you want to do. Dallas does not have that imposing wheel on the inside. Like, they have no center or power forward that's going to cause problems for Looney or even Draymond Green or whatever the case may be. So I think that it bodes well. Like, this matchup bodes well for Golden State. But then again, Dallas, to get to this point, I mean, we've always looked at Dallas as a team that just continues to fail. They fail. And now they're at this point. So it's kind of like, I really don't know what to expect from Dallas, but all I know is that you can't count them out. Dallas have a bunch of guys that fight. They're going to fight. They have some guards. They have some shooting. They defend enough, and they have an elite coach in Jason Kidd. You see what the Lakers look like with Jason Kidd out of that lineup. So that's that. I think that's pretty much all I have for the basketball segment of this show. Let's go ahead and shift gears towards fantasy football. Now, I've been looking at some players and I'm really, really interested in acquiring in Dynasty. So I'm going to speak specifically on Dynasty football. I'm going to give you one. One is Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin, I pulled up some stats today, put up a tweet. Chris Godwin is a guy that's always disrespected in Dynasty. And here's why. Number one, you overlook the greatness of Chris Godwin because of a Mike Evans. Mike Evans has had multiple years of 1,000 yards. I think 7 straight years of 1,000 yards ever since he's been in the league. So you look at Mike Evans and you look at the magnificent touchdown numbers from Mike Evans, and people truly forget how good Chris Godwin is. I'm going to pull up some numbers real quick. So Chris Godwin, let me pull it up. So Chris Godwin, he's 26 years old, meaning that in Dynasty, wide receivers start to go down by the time they hit 30, once they pass that 30 mark. So if he's 26 right now, he can give you 4 more years of being in that sweet spot, like that range of when receivers start to trim up, from 26 to 30. And then once you hit 30, some of the great wide receivers start to fall down a little bit or get into some trouble. Hopkins, you start seeing these players on, different types of substances or they're like, something happens. Or you have a guy like Antonio Brown who loses his mind, and then next thing you know, it just kind of tapers down. Julio was on that same path. Like he was skyrocketing. He was going to like try to break some records, like some, Terrell Owens type stuff. And then injury, Father Time. But Chris Godwin, yes, he's coming off of injury, so he's dipping. His stock is dipping a little bit. But I think he comes back. He comes back strong. So he's 26 years old. He finished wide receiver 2 in 2019. People forget that with Jameis Winston, he finished wide receiver 2. Also, he had 121 targets in 2019, had 128 targets in 2021, which was last year. But here's the most unique thing about last year. He had 128 targets in 12 games. In a 17-game season, he missed, excuse me. Ooh, excuse me. I had to sneeze. So he missed 5 games and still had 128 targets. There was even a game that Tom Brady targeted him 17 times. And he caught, I believe, 15 of those. So that now you're seeing the connection of Brady and Chris Godwin. And that was also with Antonio Brown leaving. It opened up more targets for a guy like Chris Godwin. He's that dude. He's that intermediate guy. You have Mike Evans who does some special things, but Chris Godwin is that dude. And had Chris Godwin finished last year, he could have possibly ended up as a top 5, top 7 wide receiver in terms of numbers, finishing top 5 to top 7. He finished 16, missing 5 games. So you do the numbers at this pace and kind of see where he would be. Also, Tom Brady, he's pissed off. He lost in the playoffs. A lot of people consider him the GOAT. I consider him the GOAT. He's great. Even at this age, he continues to ball out. But here's the thing. He's pissed off. He came back for a purpose. Godwin is going to bounce back from injury. He might not start the season, but guess what? When he does come back and he is fully healthy, I expect Tom Brady and Godwin connection to continue where they left off last year. So I'm looking forward to that. In redraft leagues, you're going to be able to get a Chris Godwin maybe in the 6th round, especially if he's going to miss, let's say, 6 games to start the season. If he does that, he's possibly going to go in the 8th, maybe 9th round. I remember last year with Michael Thomas, I was able to scoop him in a lot of leagues in the 6th, 7th round. But we all know the background of Chris Godwin. We all know his track record. We all know what Chris Godwin brings to the table. So with a player like Chris Godwin, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to pick up where he left off with Tom Brady. And I think they're going to create a beautiful connection moving forward. So I like Chris Godwin. That's one of the guys that I'm heavily targeting in all of my drafts. He's fallen to me in dynasty leagues. I just recently got him in a 16-man league in the 4th round. That's insane. I've been getting him in regular dynasty leagues around rounds 5. 5 is like a sweet spot, 5, 6. Sometimes I get lucky in a startup and get it in the 6th round, depending on the setting that is presented. If it's a vet and rookie draft, Chris Godwin's stock falls down even lower. There's been drafts where I've traded up early on in this offseason to acquire a guy like Chris Godwin. He's that guy. So you guys know that I'm big on Chris Godwin. I'm going to tell you guys, talk about a few running backs that I'm looking at moving forward. You have a guy in Sony Michel. Now, I said this earlier today. Sony Michel is the running back that you want to own in Dynasty. And I'm going to explain what I mean. When you look at the Miami Dolphins, if I said Miami Heat, I apologize. If you look at the Miami Dolphins, you see that system that they ran in San Francisco, it's geared towards the running back. So the running backs are always going to eat in that system. You have Raheem Mostert, who cannot stay healthy. I give him max, and I'm being nice, 8 games. We don't know what happens with him, right? Then we have Chase Edmonds, who's more of a pass-catching running back, right? He's going to get some carries. Then you have Tyreek Hill. He's going to do some, Debo Samuel type stuff, Curtis Samuel type stuff. But I don't see him being used a lot as a running back because they want to protect the asset in Tyreek Hill. You want to use him more so as a wide receiver. Now, we go to where are the rest of these carries going to go? You have Chase Edmonds. You have Mostert, right? But then you also have Sony Michel, who you've signed, and Sony Michel might be the better pure running back out of these 2 guys. You're going to see Raheem Mostert being used in the passing game. You're going to see Chase Edmonds being used in the passing game. But when you're talking about getting those tough yards, getting that carry, getting that goal line touches, you're looking at Sony Michel. So if you're playing in Dynasty, redraft, you might want to grab a Sony Michel later on, just because I don't believe that a player like Mostert stays healthy, right? Then you have Miles Gaskins, which I'm not worried about, and you probably have like a few young rookies that they probably, undrafted free agents. But Sony Michel, he's going so cheap in redraft leagues. You're going to get him with the last pick of the draft. And if you're doing like some early redraft leagues, you want to go ahead and get him now. He'll most likely go undrafted, so you might want to get him, stash him, and then see what happens. If you're doing Dynasty, you can get Sony Michel late in your startups. We're talking about rounds 20, rounds 23, 24 out of a 30-round startup draft. So he has great value. He's still fairly young. He's going into his 4th year. So Sony Michel is a guy that I'm targeting all over the place. I think that he's going to be one of those guys that is a big surprise, because not only does he have a 1-year deal, he's a serviceable back. If you guys listen to the show, I've talked about Marlon Mack and acquiring him 2 years ago, and even last year. Marlon Mack is now the starter in Houston. That's kind of how it goes with these backs that are in year 3 and year 4. These guys are going to move around and bounce around just because the NFL does not pay running backs. Running backs don't really get good deals. Now, you have guys like Melvin Gordon, guys that have put in the work and have done some things, and then now they do get that deal, but then they might get that deal elsewhere. So you have situations like that. A player that people are wondering about is Saquon Barkley. What happens with Saquon Barkley? I don't think the Giants pay Saquon Barkley. I don't even know if they picked up his 5th-year option. If they did, I wouldn't have picked up his 5th-year option. But a guy like Saquon Barkley, we're going to see. Next year is very telling. We'll see if the Giants trade him in season. The guy cannot stay healthy. And the shelf life of running backs are just so low. These guys are now going maybe 4, 5, 6 years, and they're done. When a wide receiver can go 7 to 10 years and give you more of a shelf life in Dynasty. So that's why I prefer getting my handcuffs, getting these cheap running backs. You know what I'm saying? 1 year I was able to get Leonard Fournette after the switch, after he was let go from Jacksonville. He found that perfect situation, ended up in Tampa Bay. I think I traded a guy like Robert Tonyan. I was able to pick up a guy like Leonard Fournette. And I took Fournette and flipped him for a 1st-round pick that turned into Jameson Williams. So I'm telling you guys, these backs like this, you get them, they go into a situation, and then they blow up. Who knows? Maybe Sony Michel is that best back in Miami, and if he is, you can cash in. Another guy that you want to look at is Darrell Williams. Darrell Williams that played for Kansas City last year. He had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. He was a really good running back. Just doesn't have a job right now. I see him possibly ending in a place like maybe the Eagles, or maybe one of these teams that are looking for just that extra punch, just that extra running back. And then who knows, an injury or two, something changes, or you just never know. He gets into the right situation, becomes a good part of that system. Now, there's been rookie running backs that have come in this year, and this year is the year that we're saying is a weak running back class, right? A friend of mine, Sheila, put me on a guy named Zamir White. Zamir White could possibly be taking over the job for Josh Jacobs next year. So now he's putting in my mind for me to go ahead and start applying some shares of Zamir White. Great tip right there, right? Then I want to talk about the Antonio Gibson thing. Antonio Gibson is heading into his 3rd year. And we all know after year 4, teams don't pay running backs. My rule is draft a running back every other year. So every 2 years you draft a running back. Every 2 years you draft one. So Washington drafted Antonio Gibson 2 years ago. 2 years later, they draft James Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. Now, Brian Robinson Jr. is more of a power back. He's a capable back. He's a real running back. He has ball security. He's going to do some of the short yardage stuff. So there were times when we sent Antonio Gibson out there, 4th and 1, 3rd and 1, he couldn't convert. He's just not that kind of guy. He's a big guy, but he's more of a finesse guy. He's more of a shifty guy. So moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how the carries split up. Is Antonio Gibson going to get the amount of carries that he got last year and the year before? No. Washington didn't have a choice. So he sent Antonio Gibson out there, a converted wide receiver, to play running back, and he fumbled the ball last year 6 times. Okay? Fumbled the ball 6 times. He has a high drop rate in terms of catching the ball, and he's a former wide receiver. So you bring in J.D. McKissick, who said no to the Buffalo Bills, comes to Washington, so you expect J.D. McKissick to be a part of that passing game, that third down back, right? You're going to have Antonio Gibson on the early downs, first and second, right? You're going to get some passes, some receptions to Antonio Gibson, but you're going to have 2 guys eating into his workload. So the days of seeing Antonio Gibson as a running back 12 or running back 13, I think those days are over. You're now looking at Antonio Gibson as a guy that's going to be in the 20s. Don't be surprised if you see Antonio Gibson in that 24 to 30 range. And I'm just being nice, assuming that Antonio Gibson gets the receiving work and the touchdown numbers to help those numbers out. But I see him more as a running back 2, a low tier running back 2 in terms of the numbers. Brian Robinson Jr. is a guy that I've been acquiring in Dynasty. I'm stashing him. And in a couple years, who knows, maybe he's the back. And then you move on from Antonio Gibson. Hopefully they find a way to keep him. I like Antonio Gibson. I like what he brings to the table, but I think that he's more of a complimentary back. He's a guy that you don't want to give him all the carries. He's not a bell cow, okay? He's a guy that you want to use his spurts, and then that's also going to help him with his ball security. It's going to help him even become a better running back instead of putting all that wear and tear on his body. So, guys, this is the episode. This is the show. Came on, talked about Warriors versus Dallas. I have the Warriors winning game 1 tonight. I also came on and talked about some fantasy football, and hope you guys enjoy the show. I'll be doing more episodes like this, sweet, short, quick to the point. If it's your first time watching me, please subscribe, please share. Also, subscribe on Apple, Spotify. I'm there, and I appreciate you guys, and I will catch you guys on that next episode. Peace.